So these are all the girls in that pool. And then this is when Tommy and Andy were like, we don't want to use turntables. And they were like, if you show us 10 places.
So at the Museum of Broadway, we're always hoping to educate, entertain, and inspire. And with the inspire, you know, seeing just all the different jobs I think you can have in the theater is really important. You know, people don't realize that there's a concept illustrator and there's, you know, all the different pieces that go into making what you finally see. And I think by shining a light, that just helps more talent to come into Broadway later. And then the education also, and I don't know, we just love to entertain and have fun.
Are you lifted? Is your soft palate lifted?
Anyway, 50 seconds.
I hate that. I was talking about this. Well, I mean,
I wanted to amplify the voices of people who work on shows and in my studio and in general in the industry that don't usually get talked about. So the artisans behind the design, and with each of the shows we chose them partially because they're really well-known shows. Some of them are huge hits on Broadway, but also because each one grapples with enormous human emotions, right? And they also have distinct design challenges. Of course, it's so nice. Thank you so much for being here.
Sophia, nice to meet you. Yes, I was.
One of the things that I am so excited about this exhibition is that we show things that people would never, the normal person would never see. So this is the original front cover of the script when it was still called the Hamilton mixtape. These are my original notes that I brought into my interview with the director, Tommy Kail. And you can see I was already playing with the idea of the turntables in the show and the Winter's Ball and some other things. And so I wanted to show some things that you could never see, like the process of building models. The design of Beetlejuice was, at the time, one of the most ambitious designs I had ever done, and we went through so many different iterations of the design. So I call this section Designing is Redesigning. This gives you just a tiny little taste of all of the different sketches that we did on our way to designing every single little piece. People never see this part of the artwork. We, of course, use these things to help us understand the scale, the line, the texture, the color, the perspective. And here are some of the models, the finished models of each one of the 3 versions of the house. The house is really its own character in the show. How do we use the models to understand what it's going to be in real life? So we actually have an exploration of scale of this kind of wonderful Beetlejuice couch that actually exists in the show. We show it in 5 different versions, and then again, I sort of thought, well, what would be the greatest thing for a super fan? Nothing better than actually being able to come in and sit down and hang out on the Beetlejuice couch and really get comfortable at the Museum of Broadway. Dear Evan Hansen has a really interesting little tidbit. When I saw the very first reading of Dear Evan Hansen, I went and folded up a piece of paper in little tiny sections, and I wrote my very, very first scribbles of my impression of the set. I had a meeting with the director, opened it up. He pointed to that and said, "What's that?" And I said, "That's a little tectonic plate of life floating inside a bunch of video technology." And he said, "Let's do that." And ultimately, that was lightning strikes, and that's what the set became. I leapt out of my chair when Des McAnuff, the original book writer and director, asked me to do the revival, the 30-year anniversary revival. And this was really an exploration of what we could do standing on the shoulders of the amazing original, which won the Tony Award, and also how we could reinvent it. Here Lies Love was by far the most ambitious design I had ever done, and maybe anyone had ever undertaken on Broadway, because we ripped out the entirety of all the seats in the orchestra. We were the first show in the history of Broadway to have 300 people standing up and moving in and around the set design. If you told me as a kid that I would have quotes from David Byrne, Pete Townsend, and the person who would become Lin-Manuel Miranda talking about how I was the person tasked to create worlds for their shows, I would leap out of my body.
Love it. Thanks, Hoff. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you.